Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon. We don't want any bad news. Yeah, we get a lot of bad news around, right? Baron got back today. At the top of its power, it was the biggest car show on the planet. But then it just disappeared. In 2020, after 16 seasons and millions of fans, Fast and Loud went dark, and the Discovery Channel never said why. Richard Rawlings, the fast-talking, beer-drinking boss behind it all, walked away from the empire he built. But what really happened behind the garage doors? The real story is not just about a show ending. It's about a friendship that broke, a brand that went out of control, and a secret deal that kept him trapped for years. The Disappearing Act. For 8 years, Fast and Loud was more than just a TV show. It was huge around the world. From 2012 to 2020, Richard Rawlings and his Gas Monkey Garage crew in Dallas, Texas, turned rust into gold, building some of the most amazing custom cars ever seen on TV. The show ran for 16 seasons, making over 160 episodes that brought in millions of viewers with every burnout and every million-dollar deal. In its last season, the ratings were the highest they had ever been, making its sudden end even more confusing. When the final episode aired on June 8, 2020, fans were left with a huge question. Why would a hit show at the peak of its popularity just disappear? The network stayed quiet, leaving everyone to guess what went wrong. The truth, however, started to leak out years earlier with a crack in the foundation of Gas Monkey Garage that would eventually bring the whole house down. The bearded wonder walks away. Every empire has a heart, and for Gas Monkey Garage, that heart was Aaron Kaufman, known as the Bearded Wonder. He was the quiet genius, the master car builder who could turn Richard's wild ideas into reality. While Richard was the face and the salesman, Aaron was the soul of the garage, the man whose skill made the show possible. For 14 years, they were the perfect duo. Or so it seemed on camera. That's why in 2017, the car world was shocked when it was announced that Aaron Kaufman was leaving Gas Monkey for good. On the show, Richard Rawlings acted completely surprised. He said the decision came completely out of nowhere and that it wasn't his choice. The official story given to the public was that Aaron was simply burned out. The show's deadlines were brutal. A project that should take months had to be finished in just a few days. Sometimes in as little as 9 days. Aaron talked about working 110 hours a week, sometimes falling asleep in the cars he was trying to fix. He told Richard he needed a long vacation and that he wanted to skin some other cats, a strange way of saying he had other things he wanted to do. But the real story was much deeper than just long hours. There was a growing, creative war happening inside the garage. Aaron, the true craftsman, wanted to build bigger, more complicated, and more ambitious cars. He wanted to push the limits of what was possible. The breaking point for him was a car called the EcoBoost Detomaso Pantera. It was a massive, difficult build that took longer than the show's tight schedule allowed. For Aaron, this was the kind of car he lived to build. But for TV, it was a problem. The network and the show's format needed smaller projects that could be finished quickly and flipped for a profit at auction. Aaron felt like his creativity was being crushed by the demands of TV. He later said in an interview that he saw a fork in the road. He wanted to build cars like the Pantera or even bigger, but TV needed cars that were much smaller. On top of the creative battles, there were personal problems growing between the two men. Aaron admitted there were growing personal issues and professional differences of opinion. The fun, easy friendship that fans loved to watch on screen was fake. The tension had been building for years. The final cold truth came out later in an interview with Richard. He admitted that he and Aaron were never really buddies. He said Aaron was just his employee from the time he was 20 years old and that they never hung out outside of work. This one sentence shattered the myth that Fast and Loud was built on. It wasn't a show about two best friends building cars. It was a show about a boss and his employee. During Aaron's final scene on the show, as he told Richard he was leaving, the pain on Richard's face seemed real. He told Aaron he wouldn't change a single thing about the last 14 years, except for maybe the last 10 minutes. The partnership was over, and Richard has since said there will never be a reunion. not in this lifetime. The quiet genius was gone, and the soul of Gas Monkey Garage had walked out the door with him. But the bearded wonder wasn't the only ghost to haunt the Gas Monkey Garage. Years before Aaron walked, other key members of the crew were shown the door under a cloud of controversy that hinted at a darker side to the fun-loving shop. It was a sign that Richard Rawlings was running his garage with a specific set of rules, and breaking them had serious consequences. The Misfit Mutiny. Longtime fans of Fast and Loud will remember Tom Smith and Jordan Butler. They were two of the most popular mechanics, or monkeys, as they were called in the early seasons. They were the comic relief, always cracking jokes and bringing a light-hearted energy to the garage. Then one day, they were gone. The show explained that they were fired for poor work performance and showing up late. But the real story that came out later was much stranger. According to reports, the real reason they were fired had nothing to do with their work on cars. It started when a fan with cystic fibrosis came to the garage. The fan wanted to take a few pictures with one of Richard's cars. Tom and Jordan let the fan pose near Richard's personal Rolls-Royce. When a manager saw this, he got angry. Tom and Jordan told the manager to chill out, using some bad language. A few hours later, Richard fired both of them. Tom Smith later said it was the only job he had ever been fired from, and the reason for it was not a good one. Richard seemed to be sending a clear message. Do not mess with my personal property or my authority. But this is where the story takes a weird turn. Shortly after being fired, Tom and Jordan became the stars of a brand new TV show called Misfit Garage. The show was about a group of underdog mechanics who started their own shop to compete with Gas Monkey. It was the perfect reality TV drama, the fired employees getting revenge on their old boss. But there was a secret that most fans didn't know. The executive producer of Misfit Garage, the person funding the entire operation, was Richard Rawlings himself. Not only that, but the building that the Misfits used for their new shop, Fired Up Garage, was also owned by Richard. He was their landlord. So, Richard Rawlings fired two of his most popular employees, only to turn around and give them their own TV show where he would make money off of them as their producer and their landlord. It was a smart business move. He created drama for his own show, launched a successful spin-off, and expanded his media empire, all while controlling both sides of the story. It showed that Richard wasn't just a simple garage owner. He was a master showman who understood that in the world of reality TV, even conflict could be turned into cash. The idea of a loyal garage family was just part of the brand. The real business was the brand itself. To understand the mind of a man who could fire his employees only to hire them back for another show, you have to rewind the clock long before the TV cameras and million-dollar deals. Richard Rawlings wasn't born a TV star. He was built piece by piece by a lifetime of hustling, risk-taking, and an obsession with cars that started when he was just a kid. The kid from Fort Worth. Born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1969, Richard grew up with the smell of gasoline in his veins. His dad was always working on a car or motorcycle, and Richard was right there with him, going to car shows and learning the trade. His passion started early. The first picture of him as a child, besides his baby photos, is of him sitting in a Volkswagen Beetle pedal car. He bought his first real car, a green 1974 Mercury Comet, when he was only 14 years old. By the time he was a senior in high school, he was already on his third car, a legendary 1977 Bandit Trans AM. But he wasn't just buying cars to drive them. Even as a teenager, he was already in the business of flipping them for a profit. He was a natural-born hustler. After high school, he didn't go straight into the car business. He took on some of the toughest jobs you could imagine. Before he was even 21, he had worked as a police officer, a firefighter, and a paramedic. This wasn't just about paying the bills. It was about feeding his car habit. These jobs taught him discipline and how to handle high-pressure situations. His toughness was tested in the early 90s when a carjacker tried to steal his beloved 1965 Mustang. Richard fought back and ended up taking a bullet to protect his car. He was willing to risk his life for his passion. After leaving his life as a first responder, Richard knew he needed to make real money to fund his dreams. In 1999, he took a huge risk and started his own printing and advertising company called Lincoln Press. He had stumbled into a sales job in the industry and found he had a natural talent for it. He understood branding and marketing better than anyone. He built Lincoln Press from the ground up with a small business loan and turned it into a major success. But even with a successful company, he felt like something was missing. His true passion was still cars. So in 2004, he made the biggest gamble of his life. He sold his successful printing company to get the money to start Gas Monkey Garage. He traded a safe and profitable business for a dream. He hired a talented young mechanic he had worked with before, Aaron Kaufman, and they started in a tiny 1,300 square foot shop. The place had no running water and no heat or air conditioning. For the next 2 years, they worked in those tough conditions and traveled all over the country, going to every car show and swap meet they could find. They were trying to build the Gas Monkey name from nothing. Richard's entire life had been a series of building something successful and then risking it all for a bigger dream. Leaving his job as a cop, selling his printing business, and now starting Gas Monkey Garage were all part of a pattern. He was a man who could never stand still. And he was betting everything he had that the world would one day care about his little garage in Dallas. Richard's gamble paid off bigger than he could have ever imagined. After 8 long years of pitching his idea to network after network, Discovery Channel finally gave him a shot. Fast and Loud debuted in 2012 and quickly became a massive hit. Richard Rawlings was a global superstar. He had the fame, the money, and the cars. But the deal that brought him everything he ever wanted came with a set of golden handcuffs he would soon regret. The devil's deal. The contract Richard signed with Discovery gave him the platform to become famous, but it took away his freedom. He revealed later that the deal was incredibly restrictive. The network had complete control over his life. They even had control over his social media accounts. He couldn't post a personal picture without getting approval from Discovery first. For a man who built his entire career on his own brand and his own voice, this was a nightmare. But the worst part of the contract was a secret clause that kept him silent. There was a penalty in his contract that said he could be fined up to $25,000 every single time he said anything bad about the network. This meant he couldn't complain, he couldn't criticize, and he couldn't tell the public what was really going on behind the scenes. He was effectively gagged, trapped by the very company that made him a star. He also felt creatively stuck. The show had a successful formula, and the network wanted to stick to it. It was a rinse and repeat cycle of buying a car, fixing it fast, and selling it. But Richard wanted to do more. He wanted to evolve. He had an idea to start his own automotive podcast, where he could talk freely about cars and the industry. But his exclusive contract with Discovery made that impossible. He was the face of a global brand, but he felt like a monkey in a cage. An empire of problems. As his fame exploded, Richard expanded the Gas Monkey brand far beyond the garage. He opened the Gas Monkey Bar and Grill and a live music venue called Gas Monkey Live. He had his own line of energy drinks and tequila. He was building an empire, but with a bigger empire came bigger problems. The expansion led to massive legal headaches that threatened to tear everything down. The biggest battle came from within his own company. In 2018, the partners who ran the Gas Monkey Bar and Grill filed a massive $6 million lawsuit against Richard. They claimed he was trying to wrongfully get out of his contract and was defaming the restaurant. Richard fought back with his own lawsuit. He claimed that the bar was using his brand without permission after he had terminated their license. He also accused them of hosting inappropriate and lewd events that were damaging the family-friendly image he had worked so hard to build for the Gas Monkey brand. The legal war was messy and public. It was a sign that Richard's empire was under immense pressure. Eventually, both sides settled and the lawsuit was dismissed. The bar was later rebranded and all Gas Monkey signs were taken down. But the damage was done. The man who was a master of branding was now fighting to protect his own name from the very businesses he had created. He had achieved his dream only to find himself at war with it. With his star mechanic on, his brand under legal fire, and a network contract that held him hostage, Richard Rawlings was running out of road. He was trapped in the machine he had helped build. He needed an exit, a way to break free and take back control of his life. And in 2020, a global crisis would give him the perfect cover to make his escape. When the world shut down in 2020, it gave Richard the one thing he hadn't had in years: time to think. The constant grind of filming, traveling, and running his businesses came to a halt. This period of quiet reflection gave him the clarity he needed. He realized he couldn't continue living inside the golden cage Discovery had built for him. He decided it was time to walk away from it all. The big moment came in December 2020. Richard traveled to Austin, Texas to be a guest on one of the biggest podcasts in the world, the Joe Rogan Experience. For the first time, he was on a platform that wasn't controlled by Discovery. He could finally speak his mind without fear of that $25,000 fine. Joe Rogan asked him the question that every fan wanted to know. What happened to Fast and Loud? Richard didn't hold back. He told Rogan and the world that he was done with the Discovery Network. He explained that he was tired of the creative limits, the endless cycle of a show, and the feeling of being stuck in a rut. He wanted his freedom back. He announced that he was officially leaving television to become a free agent. The secret was out. Richard Rawlings hadn't been fired. The show hadn't been canceled because of low ratings. He chose to end it. He chose to walk away from the show that made him a household name. Life after TV. Richard Rawlings didn't disappear after he left Fast and Loud. He pivoted. He executed a brilliant escape plan and moved his entire empire to a new home where he was the one and only boss, the internet. He is now fully focused on his YouTube channel, Richard Rawlings and Gas Monkey Garage. The channel has become a massive success, proving that the Gas Monkey brand was strong enough to survive without a major television network behind it. Now he has complete control. He decides what cars to build, what content to make, and what to say. No network executives are telling him what to do, and no threat of a fine for speaking his mind. He is also changing his business strategy. He held a huge auction and sold off a large part of his famous car collection. He used the money to start investing in what he calls better cars with more pedigree, taking his passion to a higher level. And he finally got to start the projects Discovery had blocked for years. He launched his own podcast called Monkey Trap, and even unveiled a massive $500,000 food truck in Dallas. He wasn't just surviving after television. He was thriving. He had successfully traded fame for freedom. In the end, Richard Rawlings didn't disappear at all. He executed a strategic escape. He broke free from the cage of television fame to get back on the open road of true entrepreneurial freedom. The real reason he vanished from Fast and Loud is that the show, the network, and the brand he built had become a prison. He had to choose between being a famous employee or being his own boss. He chose to be the boss. He didn't just want to be the star of the show anymore. He wanted to own the entire network. And now on YouTube, with millions of subscribers watching his every move, he finally